Indianapolis Colts quarterbacks Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones have a lot to prove on Thursday night against the Baltimore Ravens in the first preseason game. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and my partner Jake Arthur is our credentialed clogs on the ground for the site.
That's I don't have clogs.
That's a good alliteration, I guess. I'm going to keep thinking of more alliterations. Look, I call you the clogs. You're the clog of this show. You're the key clog of this show, Jake. That's
don't know how I feel about that.
Key clog. Yeah, it's fine. It works.
Perfect.
But guys, no practice today. The Colts only had the one joint practice with the Baltimore Ravens. So today, to preview the upcoming game against the Ravens, we're going to break down what we want to see from some of the Colts starters in that game in their first half of showing. We're also going to talk about some players who really need to step up in this game to fight for that roster spot, maybe earn a place on the 53-man roster. And then we're going to talk about some players who, throughout their play this offseason, have really already kind of earned that spot, in our opinion, and maybe solidified their place on that 53-man roster. So, Jake, we can't go a whole episode without talking about the quarterbacks on Locked On Colts. We are locked on quarterback competition here this offseason. And Anthony Richardson is going to be the quarterback getting the start on Thursday against a lot of the Baltimore Ravens backups. So for me, before I kick it over to you, I just want to see Anthony go through the process, make things look easy on himself. Like, let's not have the volatility. Let's not have the highs and lows of like that Bengals preseason game last year, where it was a fantastic first drive to go down and score against the Bengals backups. Then the second drive, a pick six, and then the third drive, all misses. And that was kind of it. And it was like, how do I feel about this performance with Anthony Richardson? I just want to see like a normal quarterback performance from him. Come out, complete a few passes, maybe make the one or two wow plays that you do, and get out of that game healthy. That's really what I'm looking for here. I don't need him to rewrite the record book in one half of play here against the Ravens, but just show that we have got that improvement this year. Be accurate, get to your checkdowns, get to your underneath plays, make your one or two wow plays that you do, and get out of the game healthy. That's really my standard for Anthony Richardson on Thursday night.
Yeah, he's had a couple like huge performances in camp that have involved like him running the gamut of the Anthony Richardson experience, but basically hitting on all of like the wow stuff you normally want to see from him. Just like you, I don't really need to see all the wow stuff. I want to see drives sustained that aren't just solely reliant on huge plays. Like, I do want to see some of the boring stuff. I want to see accurately placed, outlet passes to running backs or, 5-yard outs to guys. I want to see those things that should be simple. I want to see him execute those well. I just think he's such a boom or bust player every drive of his career for the most part so far. He's going to connect on some chunk plays probably, maybe 1 to 3 chunk plays given how long he'll be in there. But I do want to see some boring quarterback play from him in the positive sense. Because when the lights come on, the regular season gets here, if he's the starter, we all know he can do what he can do. Look at week 1 last year, what he did to the Texans secondary. We know that can happen. So, if he wants to be check down Charlie and hit a couple chunk plays, I'm cool with it. I just want to see them move the ball a bit, not be so reliant on big plays, but just like you said, that volatility is bad. Like, if he misses, let's not miss the guy by 5 yards. I just think if he could show that he's like grounded in his mechanics and stays out of his head, then I think that'll be a pretty big thumbs up for him, because a lot of times when I see him and it looks so chaotic, I'm like, he is so in his head right now. Like, that's why I think he's so good in like fourth quarter situations, because you don't have time to do that. It's just a lot of instincts and a lot of quick reaction, quick read stuff. you don't have time to be processing all that. So if he can do those things without it, at the beginning of a game and it not being at the end, I think that will show some true growth on his part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the big thing too with Richardson is being boring at the quarterback, like you mentioned there, Jake. Now we're going to go to the other guy where, again, you have to have different standards for different quarterbacks because Daniel Jones, I think we can both agree, he has had the boring down all offseason. Even in situations where the Colts are wanting him to push the ball down the field, he has been taking the check down. So a lot of balls thrown to Josh Downs, a lot to Tyler Warren, a lot to the running backs. I think the big thing for Daniel Jones and his very limited action we're going to see on Thursday is let's push the ball a little bit. Let's show that you can be more than just another Gardner Minshew in this offense, because having another Gardner Minshew is fine. Like, you are giving us a good baseline as a high-end backup quarterback, a low-end starter, and I think that's fine to push Anthony Richardson with his volatility. But if you want to really win a quarterback battle, and you want to, especially when Richardson has had a pretty solid camp, like, if you want to win a quarterback battle, you have to do something that makes the coaching staff say, wow, we can really go places with this guy. And as of right now with Daniel Jones, he's kind of shown that he can be a distributor in the short passing game, but he hasn't really shown much more than that so far in camp. So for him, I want to see him take some chances and push the ball down the field, especially, again, like by the late second quarter, he's going to be out there against like third string guys. Like, take some chances, push the ball down the field, take advantage of some corners who probably aren't even going to be on an NFL roster in a couple weeks, and really make a case for yourself as this guy who could do more than just check the ball down and get off the field after, a couple plays.
Yeah. So for Daniel, again, I'm confident he's going to give you just like he'll give you some rhythmic passing. Like, if there's the short stuff, he's got that on lock. But a few key things I'm looking for from him. If the pass rush that's facing him is, above average, because, that second team offensive line for the Colts, it's going to have some holes in it. If the pass rush is getting after him, does he look panicked? Is he fading backwards, throwing off his back foot? Otherwise, is he like locking onto receivers with his eyes and being incredibly easy for defensive backs to read? That is something we have seen, through his Giants career and even in camp. So, if he could get those things cleaned up, I think that would be great. And then, like you said, pushing the ball downfield, I think he'll probably have Anthony Gould to throw to a good bit. I'm trying to think. Ashton Doolin may be out there.
Mitchell might be out there by that point.
Mitchell could still be out there late in the first half. We'll see. But he's going to have guys that can stretch the field out there. I would be almost certain that he's paired with Anthony Gould a little bit. So he's going to have a guy that can help him stretch the ball, because for the most part, when Daniel does go deep, it's for Alec Pierce, and he's just not going to have Pierce at his disposal. So, I think some of the things that are problems that we'd like to see changed are probably fixable. I don't know how, a guy this far into his career staring down receivers, I don't know how much that will change, but certainly he could be a little more aggressive. I'd also like to make sure like the grit with him running the ball is still there too, because that'll be important if he gets to play during the regular season. He's a guy who will lower his shoulder, and if he sees the goal line, he'll try to get there. He'll go for the first down marker. So now a couple years off the ACL, I want to make sure that his running ability is still as advertised what they think they're getting with him. So I think he certainly could have a good performance, but there's some stuff, just like Anthony, that he's going to have to kind of show some growth on.
Yeah, and then real quick before we get out of this segment too, the other guy we're really going to be watching, and I already mentioned him once here, A.D. Mitchell. Can this camp performance the last couple of days? And the Colts posted a huge video of him in the joint practice just cooking Ravens defensive backs, and honestly, it didn't even do it full justice on how well he performed in yesterday's practice, because like you said, Jake, they didn't even put his one-on-one clips in there where he was really cooking dudes. So I want to see if Mitchell can carry over some of these really strong camp days into these preseason games, make some aggressive plays on the ball, maybe create after the catch. That would be awesome as well. I just want to see a good performance from Mitchell and hopefully, again, more momentum carrying into the rest of camp and carrying into the regular season here in September.
Yeah, it's going to take him doing stuff in a game for me to be sold that this is all turning over a new leaf. If he could do it in a preseason game, excuse me, he'll be able to do it in the regular season, because we've seen him beat the best corners in the league during the regular season. Derek Stingley, he's beat him. He's been matched up with several guys and Sauce Gardner. Like, he could beat anybody out there, getting separation. So if he is cooking these second, third team guys, I'm confident he'll do it in the regular season as well. So yeah, just that showing that comfort level with him. That's basically what I'm looking for. And then I'll put my stamp of approval on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. But coming up, guys, we are going to transition into talking about players that need to step up. These quarterbacks, obviously, we want to see have a good time, but these players are kind of on the chopping block. If they don't have a big game on Thursday or the rest of the preseason, that might be it for their chances of making the team. We have several players we're going to talk about in just a second.
This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, Zach and I are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you absolutely should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I have used Yahoo Fantasy for years. There's a few leagues that I've been in for a decade plus at this point. And I think, there's a lot of things that keep me coming back. Like their waiver wire, for example, I think is second to none in terms of being user-friendly and just quickly being able to compare your players to who's out there. But one of the really cool new features that they're rolling out is the Guillotine Leagues, which just dropped. That means every week the lowest scoring team in your league is eliminated, and the last one standing wins. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. So stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, welcome back to the show, everydayers. We are talking a little bit of a preview of Colts Ravens for Thursday night prime time. And the guys we're going to talk about now, I would say they need a good game. They're on the bubble right now, and they need to show in a game setting that they deserve a spot. Some of these guys have performed relatively well throughout the summer, but they are in kind of dead heat roster battles right now. First guy I'm going to mention is Khalil Herbert at running back. So I think behind Jonathan Taylor, we've seen a little bit of movement throughout the last several months. So Tyler Goodson was listed as the RB2 on the unofficial depth chart. I think that's a little generous. If there was a game tomorrow, I don't think he's probably the next guy you'd be relying on to carry the load. It's probably more so DJ Giddens, but certainly Goodson's probably RB3, which leaves Khalil Herbert there perhaps as the odd man out at RB4. I don't know that they're going to carry that many running backs. So I think a guy like this, who does have a proven track record of making big plays in the NFL before, like he's been very, very good for the Bears before he was traded over to the Bengals. I think he needs a big performance in a game to kind of hang in there. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think when you look at his contract, it's near the vet minimum. It's very, very low. It's an easily cuttable contract. Then you compare him to other guys in the running back room, where Giddens has the draft pick potential that the Colts, they just selected him in this past class. Tyler Goodson is a core 4 special teams guy. He's not going anywhere. So you aren't really convincing the Colts to keep you over other guys in the roster or in the room. You're really trying to just convince the Colts to, hey, I'm too good to cut. You need 4 running backs on this roster. Mm-hmm. That's going to be his big thing that he needs to sell the Colts on. So yeah, he really needs to have a big day. He had a pretty good joint practice the other day, so hopefully he can build that momentum and carry that into this outing on Thursday. But the two biggest players we got to talk about, Jake, Will Mallory and Jelani Woods. I don't think anything has changed in recent weeks to where we're sitting here saying that it's not going to come down to one of these two guys making that last roster spot at tight end. I still think that they're firmly in competition with one another. It seems like Will Mallory has a slight edge on Jelani Woods as of right now, but that can certainly change by the end of the preseason. And I think these guys are going to be out there pretty late on Thursday as well. Like, I think we'll see them enter the game in like the second quarter, and we might see them as late as like mid fourth quarter in this outing, because they need every rep as possible to show this team who is worthy of being that fourth tight end. So Will Mallory, Jelani Woods, 2 former draft picks that the Colts clearly like. I think they're in for the fight of their lives in these preseason games. And it's going to come down to just whoever shows out more, who shows out more as a blocker, and who has more upside as a pass catcher as well.
Yeah, I think both of them have to show a lot of the same things. First and foremost is health for them. Mallory hasn't really dealt with health issues much during the season, but I feel like especially last summer, he was banged up quite a bit. So he has to get through the summer, proving he can stay healthy. Jelani Woods, obviously, as well. He's missed the last 2 years. Didn't get hurt last year until like the tail end of the summer, I feel like. But then both have the questions about, are you more than just a pass catcher? So Jelani Woods was showing some improvement as a blocker last year before he got hurt. Keep that going. Will Mallory has acknowledged that he needs to do the same thing. So whereas he may not have as much of the baseline to do it, he's a narrow guy. Like, I don't know how much more power he can add to his frame. Like, if you're a pass catching, kind of troublemaking tight end for defenses, I think that's still a fine role to have. Jelani, I think, certainly has more room there to become that like classic 3-down tight end. So yeah, I think that fight is going to come down to the finish. The Colts might need every single rep they see from those guys to make a firm decision. But I'm in the same camp as you, where I think Mallory probably has the slight edge. This coaching staff, I believe, drafted him. And, with Woods, they just haven't seen him for 2 years. So it's hard to hang your hat on stuff that you saw when Matt Ryan was the quarterback. You know what I mean? It's just been a while. I think next up, we're going to talk about a group that is perhaps the position group we've talked the least about, but it's got like 3 guys jockeying for this position, and that's nose tackle behind Grover Stewart. You got Eric Johnson, you got Tim Smith, you got Josh Tupou, all battling for this. Now, Johnson, I believe, was the next up after Grover on the unofficial depth chart. Tim Smith is the guy they drafted to be that. And then Josh Tupou is the Lou Anarumo, I feel safe option. So I have no idea where to put these guys. I think they still would probably like Tim Smith to do it. My guess would be Josh Tupou should rank above Eric Johnson in the final pecking order, with Johnson maybe being the odd man out. But at the same time, how many backup nose tackles are they going to keep,
Yeah, no, I think this one purely comes down to the preseason games and the performance in the preseason games, because if we're looking at the Colts defensive tackle room, there's probably 4 guys who are safe, but 3 of those guys are 3 techs in DeForest Buckner, Adetomiwa Adebawore, and Neville Gallimore. Those guys are 3 techs, do not play them at 1 tech whatsoever. So then it comes down to these 3 guys to be the Grover Stewart backup. And maybe Tupou could be a practice squad guy for you, and you could feel okay with that. But certainly you still want another guy on the roster in Smith or Johnson. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I think it's going to really come down to how these guys perform in these preseason games. Going to another defensive position, Shea Gualubi and Austin Ajake, it feels like are competing for that final linebacker spot, that 5th linebacker spot on the team, because we can all say that the top 4 guys are probably making it. In McGrone, Carlies, Franklin, and Bocce are all certainly going to make the team. So I could go either way. Like, Alubi is a core special teams guy, but Austin Ajake has been getting some legit run with the first and second team recently.
Yeah.
And he's certainly ahead of Alubi when it comes to snaps on defense. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's one where Brian Mason and Lou Anarumo, have the pool stick between them and they fight over which guy gets to stick on the team. But I really have no clue which way the Colts would go with this. I think when you're really looking at this final 53-man roster, the final 3, 4, 5 spots that are up for grabs, this is probably one of the biggest competitions in Ajake and Alubi for that final spot.
Yeah, and surely Ajake has some special teams ability as well. Like, as far as I know, he's been getting some special teams run too. But yeah, it's tough with Alubi. I'm just so curious about that one, because we assumed he was linebacker 3 going into it, and it's just could not be further from the actual reality. And then another important one, and this is because of injuries, but might we see Alex Johnson or Jonathan Edwards make the week 1 roster?
Who?
Only reason,
right? Who are these guys?
Exactly. We're paid to know them and see a roster every single day, so that's why we know them. But yeah, I mean, Charvarius Ward has been in and out. Kenny Moore has been really the only mainstay, because now Justin Wally got his knee banged up in the joint practice. Jalen Jones, Juju Brents, they're out with hamstring injuries. They're signing guys off the street left and right. They're bringing back old faces and Chris Lamons. They got to have guys make this team if everyone's going to be banged up. And that may mean Alex Johnson or Jonathan Edwards makes this roster. I mean, Edwards has gotten quite a bit of reps with the first and second team over the last week or so since these injuries have started piling up. A bit of a mixed bag of what he's produced, but I mean, it's been more than Alex Johnson. Alex Johnson, I think, has been around since future deals time, like at the end of last year. So,
I think I don't think these guys have a great chance of making the team because it's just tough to rely on players with their pedigree to be the bottom of your cornerback roster, especially when everybody else is hurt, to have them maybe play in actual games.
Mhm.
But I do think that they have this opportunity where if they just have a stellar preseason, then you make it hard for them to cut you. You know, Jonathan Edwards goes out there as a 23-year-old player and has a couple pass breakups or a pick or two or something like that in these 3 preseason games. It makes them hard. It makes you hard to cut. And same with Alex Johnson, a player who has that rapport with Jerome Henderson and that pass with Jerome Henderson as well. So it's really more so on them to just have a great performance and make them tough to cut when they potentially put Jalen Jones on IR after cut down days and have room for another corner. So it's not really like they're fighting for a spot that's open for them, but they have this opportunity to create an opening to make the roster with all these injuries currently in the cornerback room. So Jonathan Edwards, big, flashy, athletic tight end rookie out of Tulane. That's where the T came from, I promise. And then Alex Johnson, a bigger player too that has that pass with Jerome Henderson. They have a path to make the team if they can have a great preseason performance. But coming up, guys, we talked about players who need to step up if they want to get a spot on this roster. Now we're going to talk about lesser known guys who, in our opinion, seem to be safe because of what they've done this offseason. I'm sure some of these won't be surprising, but maybe we'll throw in some extra names for you that could surprise a few of you guys listening.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best place to make every game even more exciting. You're already following all the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach like a bunch of suckers. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Super easy to use, fast to pay out, which is obviously very clutch, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I am part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to Locked On Colts Everydayers. We are talking Colts and Ravens. Guys, what they've shown us in the preseason or during training camp, or what we would like to see from them in the preseason. In this last section here, we're going to talk about guys who have kind of already laid the groundwork to be safe come roster cut time. Now, the preseason is just starting, so a lot can change. But we feel relatively confident that these guys have left an impression on the coaching staff that is probably going to keep them around. So let's start with Riley Leonard, and let's throw some context into the Riley Leonard discourse that has been happening over the weekend. So Riley Leonard, pretty firmly entrenched as QB3.
He's already QB3, Jake. That's
behind,
what it is, actually.
Yeah, already, yeah. Behind Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, the only 2 players who are battling for the right to be the Colts starting quarterback, the only 2 players. But yeah, I think Riley Leonard, for what his role is, has done some really nice things. Obviously had that awesome practice last weekend, completed over 10 passes. The only one that was incomplete was a drop ball by the receiver. But that's good growth from him. Leading up to then, you weren't seeing a whole lot. And it just looks like a rookie quarterback 3 who needed to get some more experience under his belt, and he is doing that. These games will be very valuable for him. I think the Colts will want to kind of harbor him there as their third quarterback and not risk getting him to the waiver wire because they do like him long term, I think, as the backup option, not as the starter. Even if things go sideways with Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones after the season. But yeah, I mean, Riley Leonard as your long-term backup quarterback is a pretty sweet option. Like if it works out with him, he's got mobility. Like he's a smart guy. He, studies hard and is going to. He's not really going to get outworked. But there's issues with arm strength and there's issues with making multiple reads and everything. But I think a guy like this can show some real growth in the preseason. I mean, he's a guy who's kind of a gamer, but for all intents and purposes, I think the Colts will probably want to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster so that they don't risk losing him on waivers, trying to get him onto the practice squad.
Yeah, you heard it here first, guys. Riley Leonard's dang near perfect in training camp, and he's pushing everybody, and he's pushing everybody for playing time. But no, I do think he's just another Sam Ehlinger, and that's a good thing to have. That's a compliment for Riley Leonard. That's what the Colts drafted him to be. Let's talk about another Colts rookie. We don't have him on our list, but I just need to talk about him again real quick. Hunter Wohler. I mean, look, you're coming into this thing as a 7th round pick, who was a player moving around between linebacker and safety. We didn't really know which one he was going to be coming into camp. He was probably the pick I was most pessimistic of just because I saw him more as a special teamer coming into camp. But when I've been watching him, especially watching him live yesterday, seeing his ability at linebacker, seeing that competitive edge that he brings, I'm pretty sold on this kid being more than just a bottom of the roster guy, being a guy who can actually play some real snaps for this team and maybe be like one of those steals of the draft. I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar or anything like that, but I really like his potential as a sub linebacker and as a guy who can, again, bring that physical edge that you're looking for. So Hunter Wohler for me went from a guy that I was kind of 50-50 on, like, okay, maybe he can push like a Shegu Alubi or maybe be the next Trevor Denbo for this team, to now being like, oh, maybe he can play some defensive snaps this year at linebacker, or maybe in some 3 safety looks he can come on the field. So Hunter Wohler, I mean, he's had a great camp from everything you said. And then when I got to see him live on Tuesday as well, I was really, really impressed, especially in the one-on-ones and then at the end of the day as well in those 2-minute drills. So Hunter Wohler, and then we can't talk linebackers without talking about Joe Bacci and Cam McGrone. McGrone's been here for multiple years, a guy that has, Joe Bacci daily highlight. Yeah, exactly. That's what Rich is saying there. But yeah, Cam McGrone's a guy who's been here for a couple years, still relatively young, super athletic, a guy who was once touted as a top 100 pick. The Colts nabbed him off waivers a couple years ago, and he's just gotten better and better. And now he's at the point where he's getting first team run. And then Joe Bacci, like that's Jake has posters on his wall of Joe Bacci at this point. Like he's trying to get autographs. He's going completely unprofessional trying to get autographs from Joe Bacci.
I'm a mess.
Because you're a mess, man. It's like first love is what your true love that you're really seeing there in camp. But yeah, no, Joe Bacci, Cam McGrone, they've really stepped up, and their play this offseason is the reason why it's a conversation at linebacker with Jalen Carlisle as the other starter, because these guys have adapted to this system, played well, and Lou Anarumo is clearly seeing that. So Hunter Wohler really impressed me the most this offseason as a player that's really stepped up according to my expectations. But Bacci and McGrone, I think, in terms of like what Lou Anarumo was expecting, those guys have really surpassed what he thought, and they're really making this a conversation at linebacker.
Yeah, the reason that Wohler wasn't even on the list and you had to bring him up is because to me it's a foregone conclusion. If he didn't make the roster, that might be one of the most surprising roster cuts I've ever seen the Colts make. They had a plan for him when they drafted him, even though he was a 7th rounder. They very much felt like they would have had a plan all the same for him if he was a 3rd or 4th rounder. And then he's gone out and looked just as good as they hoped he would so far. I mean, interceptions on back-to-back drives yesterday. That was not his first interception at camp. I will say, though, his first interception was Jason Bean. So going from Jason Bean to immediately your next interception being Lamar Jackson, trajectory through the roof on this guy. So, yeah, foregone conclusion for him. Again, I'd be absolutely floored if Wohler didn't make it. Joe Bacci, honestly, I didn't really even know who that was this time last year. I'd maybe heard of him in passing, but yeah, the guy has made tons of plays. And, if he goes out and is like really bad in run defense or something in the preseason, I think we're going to be pretty bummed. But he's been absolutely awesome in the passing game. Again, making plays every day, coming down with picks, pass breakups against the big boys like Tyler Warren and what have you. So very impressive for him. We're going to go to Daniel Scott next. So this is a guy who it's more so for his special teams prowess. So they drafted him a couple years, 3 years ago now, because they saw him as a core special teamer right away as a rookie. So ACL, Achilles, back-to-back summers that derailed everything. But he's back now. He has never made it to training camp before. And, he's halfway through now at this point, knocking on all the wood. And I talked to him the other day and he was like, yeah, I mean, I'm grateful to be going out there and showing, that I can still play. Cause every time we would ask about him to the Colts and everything, they can never say anything about him physically other than, we appreciate that he's showing up every day and he's always there and he's never missed a day. That's important to him. He wanted to stay in their eyesight while he's been injured for 2 years. And I can't really come up with any highlights for him on defense as a safety. But I think it's very notable the roles he's playing on special teams. Like he's playing roles that they had for Trevor Denbo before. And that was a guy who no one knew a thing about defensively, but he made it because he was a core special teamer. So I don't think he's like a shoo-in necessarily, but I think more probable than not, Daniel Scott might make it. I feel decently well about him. And I almost want to cut you off from talking about Daniel Scott because we got a kicker battle to talk about.
So, yeah, worst case scenario, Daniel Scott's going to be a practice squad guy. I don't see him going anywhere. Tyler Goodson's another player we haven't mentioned yet in this segment, just in terms of being a core 4 guy. I mean, I saw him out there in so many roles on special teams yesterday. Like, there's no chance he's not making this team. Certainly a roster lock, in my opinion. And again, the Colts very, very much like Tyler Goodson. And then, yeah, you have Spencer Schrader on here. I think that's a kicker or something. But, yeah, I think that's all we have then for today, right, Jake?
I'll take the honors here. So to this point, Spencer Schrader has been, the better kicker. He's been kicking about 85% through camp, whereas Maddox Trujillo is about 75%. I do think Trujillo had a slightly better day on Tuesday in the joint practice from what we saw. So I feel a lot more comfortable with Spencer Schrader, as I'm sure the Colts probably do as well. Trujillo's been a little bit unpredictable to be handed such an important role in the regular season. I get a little bit more practice squad vibes at the moment. I think he's probably still got some things to iron out. He's obviously got a big leg though. So he's like, he could be yet another Colts practice squad kicker that goes on to start somewhere else. But I don't think it's totally over because Schrader hasn't been perfect. And, yesterday in that 2-minute drill, he missed the one where we said it was probably like 52 yards, missed that wide left. So it's not like Schrader's been perfect. But at the same time, they felt comfortable enough releasing Matt Gay to get Schrader without Maddox Trujillo even being an option yet, because that was before the draft. So, we'll see. I do think it's still a battle, but I would lean slightly into Schrader right now.
All right, there's your kicker update from Jake Arthur. You're not getting it from me,
you're
lucky that Jake is here. We do want to thank you guys though for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube wherever you listen to your podcast. We do want to remind you guys as well, we'll be live right after the game tomorrow, maybe like half an hour to an hour after the game. We'll be doing our Colts Squad live post-game show. So you get a whole hour of me, Jake, Derek Schultz, and Alan Pinkett all breaking down what we saw. So make sure you're tuning into that. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at ZachX2, all on socials. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube where we listen to your podcast. We love you guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow night, very late tomorrow night.